course, the custom when asked to speak is always to open, which the Gemara tells us, always to open with what's called bichavot achsania. We open with thanks and with praise to our host, Mr. Gidi Maman, this evening. Baruch Hashem, we have the zechut to gather together in his home to share the wonderful nes, the wonderful chag that is Lag baomer. And that should stand as a zechut, as a merit for you and for your family and for all your extended family and for all the Kahal Kadosh of Tiferet, Be'ezrat Hashem. So, of course, what is Lag baomer? We have this beautiful time that we celebrate today. And a lot of it has to do with the students of Rabbi Akiva, who up until now, they were over a span of time, there was a plague that had struck the students of Rabbi Akiva, 24,000 students, and they all perished in this plague. And the Gemara tells us, and it's always a debate between Mr. Cowen and Gidi and others, that the Gemara tells us that the main cause of this plague, as understood by the other sages, was that the students did not respect one another. They didn't respect one another, and this lack of respect led to animosity or competition and whatnot, and hence this plague was brought on, and the students that came out survived this, that came out of this, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was one of them, and his the main thrust of his teaching, that being in the Zohar and later, was to the approach to Am Yisrael was one of love, Ana b'Habibuta, as we mentioned yesterday during Mincha, during Seudah Shalishit. And there's so many accounts of the Nisim and the miracles that take place in connection with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I'll discuss one of them with you. The Gemara on Masechet Me'ilah tells us that when the Romans conquered the land of Israel, they were intent on destroying Jewish identity. And so with that, they made 3 decrees. One of them was not to keep the Shabbat. They outlawed anybody keeping Shabbat. The next decree was the outlaw or the prohibition of circumcision. And the fourth one was the prohibition of Taharat HaMishpacha, the family purity laws. And so they were convinced that by outlawing these 3 main laws, they would completely decimate any Jewish identity and any propagation of Judaism amongst the people. So the Gemara tells us there was a tzaddik, a Rav at the time. His name was Rabbi Reuven, and what did he do? He took a haircut like the Romans, which of course was prohibited, but he did so nonetheless to save his people. Dressed up like a Roman official, and he joined them in their proceedings, in their governmental or in their legislation. He looked like a Roman official himself, very, very important official. And so when they're discussing these decrees, the first one that comes up, of course, is the Shabbat, and he says to the other officials, himself disguised as a Roman official, he says, "Tell me, why do we have to have them work on Shabbat? It's only going to give them more wealth and more strength to their economy." And so all the other officials said, "You know what? You're right. That makes sense." And then the next decree was discussed, that of circumcision, and they said, "Well, doesn't circumcision weaken the body?" The Rabbi Reuven, the Roman official, says to the other officials, "Why should we give them more strength by not having them do circumcision? Let's keep them weak." They said, "You know what? You have a point. This makes a lot of sense." And finally, the Taharat HaMishpacha, the family laws of purity, he says to them, "Well, if we allow them to, if we prohibit them from keeping these laws of family purity, then they may have more children outside of just the normal times or whatnot. They'll have more. There'll be more of them that's going to multiply." So, and the official said, "You know what? These are very important points." And the decrees were annulled. And so it was after a certain amount of time they realized or figured out that this Roman official really wasn't a Roman official anymore. Okay? And that had enraged the officers and the Roman officers that were in charge of, the land of Israel at the time. And they had reinstilled these decrees, and the people felt that they were lost. They had nowhere to go. And they all turned to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, tells us the Gemara. And they were going to petition the emperor. And finally, and just to get out of the country with all these officials, Roman officials that were enraged at what was going on, was a feat in itself. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, of course, through Nisim and Niflaot, managed to escape from Eretz Yisrael on his way to Rome. He's accompanied by Rabbi Yosef ben Rabbi Eliezer. And he gets to the gates of Rome, and he's encountered, or he's met with a demon. Ashed meets him at the gates of Rome. And Rabbi Shimon is sad, and Rabbi Shimon talks to the spirit, this evil spirit, this demon, says to him, "Are you joining us?" And so the demon says, "Would you like me to join you?" And Rabbi Shimon, the Gemara tells us, was a little sad. He says, "Our salvation is going to come from this. Why can't it come from an angel?" And then immediately, the Gemara tells us that immediately he said, "Let our salvation come from wherever it should come, Be'ezrat Hashem, with the help of Hashem." And so immediately he summons this demon to work. And the demon all of a sudden enters the body of the princess, the daughter of the emperor, and she's heard screaming in her room, in the castle, and all she's saying is, "Bring me Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai to pray for me. Bring me Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai to pray for me." That's the only thing that's understandable from the words that she's saying. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai happened to be in Rome, and he summoned him into the quarters, the chambers of the princess. And of course he prays and he sends away the Shidal, the demon. And the emperor sees this and he opens the treasury and he says to him, "Whatever you would like, you can have from the treasury." Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai goes into the treasury, he sees the document of the 3 decrees that are set against the people of Israel. He tears up the decree, and no longer are these decrees set ever again against Am Yisrael. This is just one account of the many accounts of the great miracles that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was involved in. He says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, as I said yesterday, that there was a time in Yavneh, after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, when Am Yisrael all the sages felt that Torah would be lost. There would be no more Torah. Imagine then they were saying that, and how we are today, we feel that, to a certain extent. And so Torah would be lost, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, "Ki lo tishchach mipi zar'o," it will not be lost from his descendants, from his lineage. And this is a guarantee. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rashbi, gives us up to this day that in his zchut of the learning of his Torah, that he brought down the Torah, the secrets of the Torah, that he revealed, in that zchut, we will merit the final redemption. B'mira b'yameinu. Amen. Amen.